Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tamadori Collection, an online cat shop specializing in gifts for cats and cat lovers alike. Interesting cat articles related to health, cat behavior, and unique cat travel destinations. And of course, fun cat videos featuring our two mascots or masked cats, Tama and Midori. My name is Christina, one of the co founders of Tamadori, and today I am excited to announce our brand new YouTube interview series, Cat Reviews. In each interview, we'll learn about a beloved cat on social media from their loving humans and hear about their backstory and social media journey. Today, I am thrilled to invite Revere the Cat and her human, Elena. You can find a link to Revere's Instagram page in the description box below. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Elena.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I'm Elena. I am Revere's Humom or Meow Me. I normally say human or Humom, I guess. Revere is my tuxedo kitty, and I have had her for 8 years. We adopted her as a kitten when she was just a wee little thing. So I've had her for 8 years, and she's 8 years old.
And it's interesting because her age is right in between Tama and Midori's age of 5 and 9. So she's kind of right in the middle there.
Nice. That's awesome.
And we were actually interested, Elena, in hearing a little bit more about Revere's adoption story, especially because I know us as being a Boston-based company and you formerly having lived in Boston, we had sort of that connection in together. So we're very curious to hear a little bit more about what that story was like for you.
Yeah. So for Revere's adoption story, my husband and I had actually moved to Boston to go to grad school, and that was before we had Revere. And I had really wanted a cat for a few years, but was living in, apartments that wouldn't allow us to have any pets. And so as part of that move, my husband really encouraged me to finally get a cat. We actually made sure that when we were moving that the place that we were living to would allow us to have pets. And so we had our perfect place, and we just needed the cat. Um, my husband had actually never had cats before, so we had decided to get a kitten for the full experience of really sort of raising a cat together, and so we could sort of see what it was like to have a kitten on up to an adult cat. And so we actually went to what was called a kitten happy hour. There weren't actually any drinks, it was just cats. But we saw Revere, and she was named Crayola at the time. She was in a little cage with her brother siblings and just sort of stared at us through her cage. And we picked her up, and she was a bit squirmy, which we should have known then. That was a clue to the type of cat that she is. But that was the moment that we decided she was ours and we wanted to take her home. And so we had actually adopted her that day. To my surprise, I didn't realize it'd be so fast, and we got to take her home that night. So really cool to
That's
have
an
her.
awesome story. Yeah, and I can't say I've ever heard of cat happy hours myself, so that's really
Yeah.
fun. Now I'm starting to wonder if those still, maybe not lately because of COVID, but if something that might happen again here in the area in the future.
Yeah. Or maybe a Zoom kitten happy hour, cat happy hour. That could be kind of fun.
Well, I was actually curious too because of the Boston connection and sort of the greater Boston connection. If you could talk a little bit about the story behind Revere's name and if that is specifically a Massachusetts connection.
Yeah, so it definitely is a Massachusetts connection. And so we really wanted a name that pertained to Boston because she was kind of like our Boston kitty. We got her when and kind not when and because actually we moved to Boston. Um, and so we weren't like, it's not like we went to a doctor and decided, oh, we're going to name her Revere. We did actually kind of have like a lot of time and energy put into figuring out her name. And the first night at home, we were really thinking about it and couldn't quite figure out what we wanted. My husband had come up with a lot of sort of Boston themed ideas, and one of them was Revere, but I wasn't, sure. But that night, she actually earned her own name because we were in a little studio apartment, and it was still a pretty new apartment to us too. So we had tried to partition off a section to keep her from roaming around in the new space and possibly like getting into trouble overnight. But there was two different times where she like broke out and came bounding into our bedroom and squeaking as loud as could be. And so it just kind of fit. It was like Paul Revere's Midnight Run. And so she really earned her name, and also got free room of the apartment too.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and I was exactly before you even got to your punchline there, I was already thinking about the Midnight Run for Paul Revere, so it does sound like the
Yes.
perfect name. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that you kind of started off in more of a like a small studio apartment with your cat. I was curious to hear a little bit about what it was like raising Revere in Boston in that kind of environment.
Yeah, so we were in the small apartment for our first couple years in Boston and then did move to a bigger place. But when we were first there, like her first 2 years of life in our really small apartment, she was super spoiled because since we were both in grad school, we kind of had wacky schedules. My classes were all at night and my husband's were during the day, and I was doing like a part-time job, but that's it. And so she got really used to having us around all the time. And, I think one of the harder parts for us living in Boston was it was such a new city for us. So we had to figure out all of the cat stuff without having like connections of vet and things like that. And I was thinking about this actually the first time I tried to take her to the vet, like a week or two after we got her for some vaccinations. I got super lost and ended up driving around Boston for like 2 or 3 hours trying to find my way back home. And so we got a good tour of Boston, and I guess Revere lived up to her name by exploring all over Boston in the car too. So yeah.
And I definitely don't envy, yeah, getting lost in Boston streets. I always look at the grid systems of New York and then the lack of grid systems in the city of Boston. And it is very easy to get lost, even though it's not a very large city.
Yes, I actually like had to, because it was before I had a smartphone, because it was, 8 years ago. And so I ended up having to like roll down my window and ask different like taxi cab drivers, like, hey, how do I get to wherever you lived at the time? So it was kind of funny.
Oh, well, I imagine that living in Boston has been maybe or was a very different experience than living in your current city. I didn't know if you could share a little bit about sort of how Revere's lifestyle has changed once you went from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that Revere notices too much of a difference here. One big difference on the West Coast is that we have a lot of crows. So she likes watching the crows outside. Seattle's a really big crow city. Um, Otherwise, I'm not sure she knows too much of a difference. Of course, living in Seattle now the past year, or I guess 10 months or so, we've been working from home quite a bit. And so, that's been definitely a different change for her in Seattle versus Boston. But I'm not sure she has any idea other than that really long car ride that she is in such a far away place from Boston.
I know one of the things that I really enjoy when I look through Revere's feed on Instagram is how good she is at running up and down stairs. And I wasn't sure if that was something that she had exposure to when she was living on the East Coast.
That is a good point. So yeah, before on the East Coast, we had taken her to my parents' house a couple times, and so she'd had the opportunity to see stairs there, but she has never lived for real in a house with stairs. And here in Seattle, she does have stairs, and she loves her stairs. She races up and down them, and once I tried to time her, and I'm pretty sure that like she was so fast that I thought it was under a second that she managed to get up the stairs in like 3 bounds. So she's a speedy cat who loves the stairs for sure.
That's crazy. We have a set of stairs in our house, and our cats are very speedy going down, especially at feeding time, but I can't,
Nice.
not quite as speedy going up. And so I was hoping to get a little bit more of an idea of of Revere's favorites. And I thought we could do kind of not quite a lightning round, but maybe looking at different categories and what does Revere like. So what is Revere's favorite treat or food?
So I would have to say there's two. So Revere loves feta cheese and she loves cat grass. And for feta cheese, I really only let her have the tiniest little bit, but she'll savor it as if I gave her like a very massive piece. And for her cat grass, she is really good because she doesn't overeat it like a lot of cats do. And so she just loves to sort of graze on it all day long, and you can hear her smacking away trying to eat it.
And that's nice that you say she likes to savor the feta cheese. I usually think of cats as sort of gobbling up those treats right away.
Yeah, she's a fastidious eater. She'll, spend very long time breaking up each piece of food.
Well, that's good, and it's definitely something that is important to break up the day.
Yes.
If we think about other Revere favorites, does Revere have a favorite sleeping spot at home?
So her like true favorite spot is actually under the bed, which a lot of people probably don't know on her Instagram because you can't really take good pictures of a cat under the bed. But I think the place that her Instagram followers probably see her napping in a lot is a box. Revere is obsessed with boxes, and if we are, hanging out in the evening or something, Revere's normally sleeping in a box beside us. So you'll definitely see her in a box, and she has a very beloved box from H&M that we got in 2016, and actually she liked it so much and her Instagram crew liked it so much that we brought it across the country to Seattle with us, and we still have it. And now I just can't bear to get rid of it because it would feel like, I don't know, like severing something that's part of us.
I have seen many pictures of the love affair with the H&M box, and I
Yeah.
would have to say it is incredibly cute.
Yes, and sometimes, I'll put it away and people will be like, "Where's the H&M box?" It'll go away for months at a time. And then I'll bring it back out and she likes it again.
Exactly, it's new all over again. And I feel like
Exactly.
the same thing happens with toys too, which kind of brings us to our last favorite in this round, and that is, does Revere have a favorite game or toy?
So Revere, I would say she has a favorite game and then she has a separate favorite toy. So her favorite game is she really likes to be chased, which I'm always kind of like, is that a problem? But I think it's fine. So she really loves to have me chase her up the stairs, and then she'll hide upstairs until I find her, and then she'll pounce at me and run away. So that's definitely her favorite game to play. Um, and then for toys, she really likes the Go Cat wand, specifically the mouse and the bee. So she really likes to play with those games, and she's pretty picky about her toys overall.
We've definitely tried the bee with Tama and Midori, and we've tried the mouse, but I think one that they really enjoyed was like a little segmented dragonfly that didn't last very long in our house.
Yeah, they can really, yeah, it's kind of a toss up. Like one time we got a bee and it lasted like 3 days, but it's a fun toy.
And I know that toys are one way to kind of keep yourself stimulated and excited as a cat, but has Revere ever had any other animal friends?
So not really. She's at this point in her life, she's really not a fan of other animals. When she was a kitten, she did meet my old family dog, an old senior cat, and she kind of tried to make friends with the cat, and would kind of like, watch the dog. But now that she's older, since since she hasn't been around other pets, she really doesn't react well to them. Um, she will hiss or howl or run away. And actually, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, we woke up in the middle of the night with like a really terrible noise and realized that Revere was howling at an orange cat outside of our house. And she was just furious and actually like legitimately howling at the cat. So I felt kind of bad and I tapped the window to make him run away. But there's a lot of indoor outdoor cats. So he looked, like a healthy pet, but it was kind of crazy. She was not pleased with the stranger cat.
And it's so interesting how different cats have different personalities and likes or dislikes, and how some get along really well with other cats and others maybe not as much.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a learning curve for our Calico Tama when we first introduced Midori, our tuxedo cat, to our home. And we actually had quite the long 6-month process of unifying them together, and we didn't know if it would ever happen, but luckily it did.
Oh my goodness. That's a long time. That's amazing.
We're
Glad it
very,
worked
very
out.
determined.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm curious, just I know you have so much love for Revere. I think it's really clear when you look at your Instagram feed and all the beautiful pictures and stories that you tell of your tuxie. And I was wondering, what do you love most about Revere?
So, I think that this is going to be very like sentimental, I suppose, but I guess, I think every animal person, like if you get lucky, you have one pet who's your perfect pet in your life, and Revere definitely is that for me. And I think, we get along and we love each other so much because she and I really actually do communicate, obviously, not with like human words necessarily. But I feel like she understands me very well and I understand her too. And so that communication has really sort of helped our cat person relationship grow over the years. Um, if you look at my page, you'll see like she's always been really feisty and playful, and I've supported that, and it's so much fun. And in the past year, since she turned 7 last year, she suddenly decided that she would become much more cuddly and actually would lay down on me with her nose a centimeter from my nose, just staring into my face. And it's really sweet. And something that since I work from home now, we get to do every day. So it's really cool kind of to see that relationship continue to grow and evolve as, she has certainly mellowed a little bit, although she's still quite playful.
That's a beautiful story, and I like the way how you're describing it as like being able to communicate with your cat because I think sometimes
Yeah.
people don't give cats enough credit for being able to really kind of understand them and connect with them and communicate with them. But anybody who has a cat knows like that is a lie. You can have such a beautiful relationship with them.
Yes, absolutely. Like she says things, well, meows at me and, does things. And I'm like, oh, you're trying to tell me something. I just need to figure out what. And if you work at it, you can learn it.
Well, thinking, I guess, a little bit more about Revere, I was wondering if you had to choose 3 words that best describe Revere, which words would you choose and why?
That's really tough. Let's see. I would definitely like the first word that comes to mind is playful. She's very playful. Um, and I would also say very stubborn because she actually is a rather stubborn cat. I remember one time at the vet, like they were trying to get her out of her carrier and she pinned all of her arms on the side of it and they had to like take the whole carrier apart to get her out. So she's definitely stubborn too. Um, and then I would say it's sort of, I guess, boring but sweet because she, especially over the years, has just continued to become more and more sweet. And she does things that, are just very nice. Caressing us with her tail or something like that. That's just like a nice thing to do. She's showing us like, hi, I'm your friend. So it's very nice.
And even thinking about the words that you chose, it kind of reminds me sometimes of the classic image of a cat of being a little sweet and a little spicy.
That's true.
And I know now that we've gotten a chance to get to know Revere a little bit more, I was curious to learn a little bit more about how you actually went about starting an Instagram page for Revere. So I guess that's my first question, sort of why did you start an Instagram account for Revere?
Yeah. So I started the account because I had a personal Instagram and I found that I was taking a lot of pictures of Revere and I really wanted to share them because I love my cat so much. And I'm like, she's the cutest cat. Everybody should want to see her. But I also knew that my friends and family didn't necessarily want to see 2 pictures of Revere on their feeds every day. Not that anybody told me that, it just, I sort of assumed. And in 2016, I think Instagram had allowed people to have multiple accounts on one device. So I was like, all right, this should be easy. And I actually just created the account, didn't tell anybody else. And actually, my husband and our good friend stumbled upon the account a week or two later and were like, is this Revere? So I kind of just, yeah, kind of went with it.
It's really funny and definitely relatable. I actually started a second Instagram account for my cats for a similar reason. I know some people like to see my cats, so maybe not as much as I like to see my cats.
Yes,
And
exactly.
And you mentioned that you kind of were a little quiet about the fact that you had started it initially. And I was curious about sort of when did you really start to see your account grow from being this sort of small thing that was, you know, just to get your pictures off of your personal feed to where you are today?
That's a good question. I think, for my account, it's really sort of been just steady growth, with a few spurts here and there. Um, I, you know, throughout the past, because I've had the account now for 4.5 years, I guess. And so I definitely see the most growth, like from my account when I'm, engaged with my followers and posting every day. Um, and one thing, like I've never really, like I know some people have Instagram accounts to just like grow their followers, and that's really never been my focus. And so for me, I find that my account actually grows best when I'm just focusing on how much I love my cat and sharing that love with other people.
And I think that's a really good point. I think there's a lot of folks who maybe are hoping to be the next, grumpy cat or whatever
Yes.
big cat is on social media. But I think people looking at your feed can feel when it's something that's authentic and like a real love and a real story and a real excitement and joy that's being shared there. That's something that I definitely see when I look at your account, and I'm going to assume that that's why other people see that too and why they choose to follow.
Thanks.
But thinking about, I guess, continuing thinking about Instagram, I was curious about what is your favorite part about having an account specific for Revere?
Yeah, so definitely, I went into the account, just wanting to share my photos. And so that's probably like a favorite part. But my favorite, like, surprise part, and maybe my most favorite part really, are the connections with other cat lovers. Um, I assumed when I started posting, like, oh, like random people will just like my cat because she's amazing. And I didn't realize what an awesome, like, community of cats, of Instagram people are out there. And so it's been really great to sort of hear from other like-minded cat lovers and share, our stories of our cats and identify with one another and offer support to one another. It's been, one thing you don't even think about is like you'll become really attached to other people's cats too. And that can be kind of sad over 4.5 years because, sad things happen and good things happen. And so the connections are definitely a really favorite part.
Mhm. And I've definitely seen some really beautiful examples of folks in the cat community really helping to support other friends when they have a loss or kind of celebrating in their joys. It's something that surprised me too. I think with joining Instagram on a more cat centric side, where I think when I first joined, I thought it was funny because there were all these adults and humans on the other side speaking in the voice of their cats, and I thought maybe they're just a little bit crazy, and then a year later here I am and I'm probably just as crazy.
I know, and that's a good point. Like that's something like now it's sort of second nature, speaking in the voice of a cat, but that definitely is something that I know for me, like took me a while to sort of figure out my voice. Like how did I want to speak as Revere? And I know at first I think I just like spoke in the third person or avoided tenses at all, but yeah, I kind of figured it out.
And I think along the lines of figuring things out over the years, I'm curious if you've ever had any challenges in running an Instagram account for Revere.
Yeah, so there's some challenges. You know, I think sometimes, like, just the overarching challenge is that it does actually take a lot of time, to run the account, depending on your level of commitment to it. And so, I try to really stay engaged and, stay in touch with other like-minded cat accounts, and that does take a lot of time. And I do actually have a full-time job, so it can be hard to balance sometimes, just that time aspect. And so I always find it's important to like remember to keep a balance where I'm engaged, but also, you can't let it overrun your entire life. And then, I think one of the other, darker sides is, Instagram doesn't always do the best at sort of protection of people's own personal photos and things like that. And so in 2018, Revere's post started getting stolen by, it was really random, but it was tuxedo and matcha green tea accounts. It was very bizarre. And so she and probably 10 or 20 other tuxedo cats all had this happen to us. And it actually created a lot of strong bonds with other tuxedo cats, but it was also very frustrating, and it was definitely a challenge, since Instagram doesn't always do the best at responding to those types of reports, and wouldn't remove the photos.
No, I can definitely understand why that would be troubling. I think like we look at our cats as our family, and we want to protect them, and you also want to protect what other people are doing with their images and how they're represented in other public areas. So it definitely makes sense and something that we all have to be kind of mindful of.
Yes, exactly. And for a while, I, started watermarking my photos really large, and I've sort of drifted away from that, but, watermarks are always a good idea. Not that I'm currently doing it.
I don't think I'm doing it either. So maybe I might consider that in the future. And thinking about the future of Revere's page, and this might not even necessarily be something that you're thinking about, but do you have any goals or any aspirations for how you would like to see Revere's page change or move forward in the future?
Honestly, my goal is really just to keep doing what I've been doing. I've had periods of time over the past 4.5 years where I posted less frequently, mostly just because of like fatigue with social media or business with my outside work. But over the past, I would say, year, I've actually gotten into a really great rhythm where I am posting daily, and I feel like I have a good balance. And so that's really just my goal: keep posting and continuing to stay in touch with the accounts that I'm close to.
That definitely sounds like a good way to think about it. And I know, as we mentioned earlier, Elena, that there are a lot of folks who are really excited about having their own pet accounts, whether that's to be the next superstar of animals, or whether it's just for their enjoyment because they need a place to put all of those beautiful photos they're taking on their
Yes.
on their cameras. So, what advice would you have for other humans looking to start their own cat Instagram account?
Yeah, so I think just knowing that it actually probably will be a lot of work. I think sometimes people do assume, like kind of like we were talking about with Grumpy Cat, people assume that like, oh, everybody loves cats on social media. If I create a cat account, I'll have tens of thousands of followers right away, and my post will go viral. And that's not normally the reality, unless there's like something really special or you're abusing the system a little bit. So I think that's just a good perspective to know that it actually probably will take some work. And to focus on, if you do start an account, to focus on why you started the account and remember that, because I know like when I first started my account, I started it, like I said, because I just wanted to share these photos of Revere. And it can be easy sort of to get caught up in like trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like when I first started, there was always lots of like cat parties and tags to complete. And I started sort of feeling exhausted trying to keep up with all of that, as crazy as it sounds. And so, just focusing and reminding yourself really why you started the account. And for me, that was just, I want to share photos of my cat the way I want to share photos of my cat.
Nope, and that makes sense. And I feel like once it's not fun or you don't feel like sharing those photos anymore, then it's okay to stop too.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know in addition to having Revere's Instagram account, you also are participating in a page on Instagram called Tuxedo Features. And I was
Yeah.
wondering if you could talk a little bit about what is Tuxedo Features?
Yeah, so Tuxedo Features is actually an account which is run by a bunch of other tuxedo accounts, and we feature other tuxedo cats on Instagram. And so we have, oh, I should have double checked this number, but I think we have 12 or 13 admins for the account. And so we each have different days on which we, will maybe post on one of our own photos telling people like, hey, we'll feature tuxedo cats. Make sure to use our tuxedo features tag. And then we will feature a different cat that has used that hashtag. And so it's a really cool way. I've noticed that the community is really, we've really sort of like built a great tuxedo features community where, you know, we'll feature a new cat and they'll almost instantly get, you know, 30 or 50 followers from other cats in the tuxedo features community. So it's really kind of a cool way to bring tuxedo cats together.
No, that does sound like a really nice way to support the fellow tuxies. And I would
Yeah.
imagine that having 12 or 13 admins is really helpful too in kind of distributing that work and alleviating some of that daily pressure of keeping up with the page.
Yes, exactly. So it's really cool because, you know, since we have set days, you'll see like, you know, two admins might sort of coordinate together, like, oh, my day is really crazy right now. Can you please post first this time? And yeah, it's a really nice partnership.
And I'm actually curious about how you specifically got involved as being an admin for the page.
Yeah, so I am one of the, I guess, older admins in the group. We've added members a couple different times to replace people who were no longer interested in being admins. And so I've been there since the beginning. Um, I think in early 2018, we started the account. And I actually was part of the beginning group because the founder, Dahlia, invited me and a couple of other admins to join the account because she recognized that there was no other tuxedo cat feature accounts that were really active. And it was a really smart observation of hers. And, you know, I think we're one of the really active tuxie feature accounts out there right now.
And yeah, I find that surprising that there weren't a lot of active tuxedos sort of
Yeah.
featured accounts because I feel like tuxedo cats are so popular. And a lot of times when people are looking to adopt one or adopt a cat, they're often wanting to adopt a tuxedo cat.
Or they should if they're not. Yeah.
Well, I was curious. I know that you have so many like adorable, beautiful tuxedos that are featured on the Tuxedo Features page. And I was curious if you could talk a little bit more about what is the selection process for choosing a cat to feature?
Yeah. So we sort of have like some core requirements. So cats have to use the hashtag on their public account. So you have to have a public account and use the tuxedo features hashtag on your post. So you can't be private. And then, you know, outside of that, we don't have a lot of like set criteria that all admins must follow, which I think is kind of cool because it's allowed well, and you have to be a tuxedo cat. I guess that's sort of assumed, but I should have said that. But we don't have a lot of criteria outside of using the hashtag and being public and being a tuxedo cat. So it allows the admins to really develop their own sort of approach for who they want to follow. You know, I tend to follow, or I tend to feature, accounts that I know, but not necessarily. I also tend to feature accounts that I see as really engaged with tuxedo features because I think that shows that they're in there for the community and not just for like the feature and the follow.
Mm.
And so I like that. Like the PNW tuxie sometimes because I'm here in the Pacific Northwest and it's kind of fun to feature my neighbors in Seattle or Portland or Vancouver. So, you know, we kind of all have a different selection process that we use and it just kind of makes it fun. And I think it gives each feature a bit of a unique spin as well.
No, it does. That sounds like a really good way to go about it. And then I think it keeps it fresh too, because you have so many different perspectives of what people are looking for. But maybe that creates more diversity in the count, even though they're all tuxies, but they're still tuxies from different regions, different personalities, and just makes it a bit more rich.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for our interview, Alina, I have one last question for you today. And it's specifically about tuxedo cat, since Revere is a tuxedo cat. And I was curious about why do you think tuxedo cats are loved so much by so many people around the world?
I think people probably love them because they look so unique because they sort of look like they're dressed up in a little tuxedo. And that's just really kind of hilarious when you think about a cat in a tuxedo. So they look adorable. And then they tend to have really cool personalities too. You think about a smart tuxedo cat or a feisty tuxedo cat, and they just kind of have that air to them where, you expect them to have a little bit of pizzazz along with their tuxedo. So I think they just are really unique and kind of special cat.
Well, as a person with a tuxedo cat at home, I'm a little biased and I would definitely agree.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was going to ask Elena if you could hang on the line after the interview is complete, but I did want to thank you so much for taking time today to talk to us about your experience with Instagram, your experience with Revere. And I definitely want to encourage all of our followers today to definitely check out Revere's Instagram account, which, as I said at the beginning, is going to have a link in the description at the bottom of your screen. So thank you all so much, and we hope you all have a good evening.